So what do you do when you're living in a community that you love, you're living by friends that you really love, but you feel like you need to move for a couple of reasons? You've outgrown your house, and something's happening in your family that's all coming together. Well, that's what we're going to talk about in this episode of Home Stories. So hey guys, welcome back. My name is Sztanyo with Keller Williams Realty and TeamStanyo.com, where we are helping families find their way home. And welcome back to Home Stories. This is episode 2. I'm here with the Barbours. They'll get to introduce themselves in just a minute. And just a quick recap, the idea of this series is really inspired by this quote from Winston Churchill, who said, "We shape our buildings and thereafter they shape us." And I was thinking about that quote and realized that every single family who lives in a building, in a home, has a story. And I thought it would be really cool to start to unpack those stories, because part of that story in the family's narrative is the actual building itself. The house is actually a character in that story. So here we are, episode 2, Home Stories with Rhett and Ang Barbour. So guys, thanks so much for having us here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your family and all your children, and what makes the Barbours the Barbours?
Sure. Yeah, so my name's Rhett.
Ange.
Just Ange.
As in Angela.
All right. That's what I call you. Yeah. So yeah, we've been married for
Almost 14 years?
13 and a half years. 13 and a half years. And we've got 5 kids. 10, 8, 6, 4, and 2. So we find ourselves busy all the time. But I own my own business. I used to be in high school education, so I've been in that transition I've been doing the business for the last 10 years. And Ange gets to stay home with the kids.
Yeah, I get to homeschool and run all the little crazy people around as they need it.
That's right.
Okay, so it's a full house, very full house. So when did you move to this house? What city are we in, and when did you guys move here?
Yeah, so we're in Florence, Kentucky, and we moved here right at literally 3 years ago, almost. I mean, yeah, to the month at least.
Yeah.
So
okay, and why did you guys move?
when I think about where we were 4 years ago, so a year before we moved, we had 4 kids, and we were in a 2-bedroom apartment in Fort Thomas, Kentucky, which is about 15 miles north of here. And we were surrounded with what most people would probably consider kind of an epic community. I think on the street, there were 54 children under the age of 12. So it was like basically, recess all the time for the kids. And so it was a great environment. You walk out on your porch and you'd have a drink in your hand, and so would your neighbor. And so, what was really interesting for us is we found ourselves on that street in a rental property, which was a blessing for us at the time. We lived there for a little over 3 years. And honestly, the biggest impetus for moving from there, not necessarily to Florence, but from there, was simply space and cost.
Yeah.
We ran into the issue where the city we were in had low rental costs, but high purchase costs. And there weren't any other houses on that street for rent. And we were in like I said, a 2-bedroom apartment. And we were making it work, and we really wrestled. It was an awesome enough experience and community where we actually still ask the question, with our 5th coming, were we going to stick it out and stay here? We ultimately decided not to, and the only other houses on the street that were for sale were double the cost of the one we moved into here.
And that was 3 years ago in Fort Thomas.
Yes.
So yeah, you got out.
Yeah,
It would have been even worse right now.
Right. So that was one reason. The impetus to just start asking the question 4 years ago, should we start looking at moving, came down to that when we found out we were pregnant with our 5th. And then, something had been happening in our extended family over the course of the last 5 years ago up to now, that had been really special, where there was a lot of healing and relational cohesion occurring, both in between us and my parents, us and Angie's parents, us and my sibling. You know, so it was like there was this family narrative happening, and we were living in Fort Thomas, which, if you understand Northern Kentucky well enough, it just kind of isolated us. We were super surrounded by friends, but isolated from really anyone else who didn't live in Fort Thomas, because it's not a drive-through community.
Right.
And so we started asking the question, like, as we're having our 5th kid, my mom was retiring from her job. We knew we would need more help. We needed more space.
Your sister's family was starting to come around having their own kids.
And she was looking at buying a house in Florence as well.
Yeah.
So she moved back to Florence from elsewhere. My parents are in Florence. This is where I grew up. And so I had always said, I literally had told people, I would rather live in any city on earth than Florence, Kentucky. But there just seemed to be a lot of things pointing us toward coming back to our family, kind of coming home where it all started.
So that's a really interesting thing, because you don't hear a lot of people our age and our generation saying, yeah, I want to move closer to my family. Especially when you're on the street, and we keep joking because I saw this all happen up close and personal, because we were neighbors and dear friends, and I loved having you guys on our street. It was really sad to see you go, but I understood it. But you don't see a lot of people, you know, so part of it was the house was too small, but the other part was something was happening with your family where you're moving closer together. Tell me more about, a little bit about that story and why that was so important, and why is that so important to you guys?
Yeah, you know, I think for us, we came out of, we're right on the cusp of the millennials, right? So that's kind of this postmodern existentialist. That's kind of where I resonate with. But so we came out of our teens and into our 20s as we were getting married, and we found a community of faith that gave us a home that we had never felt like we had, even in our own families. And so we kind of like leached, in a positive way, leached onto and grabbed onto that group, which was the group that was still living on that street in Fort Thomas, you know, multiple years later. We just really found that to be life-giving for us. And I never really asked the question at that point of, is there not even necessarily better, is there a different way? Is there a different way to feel home and to feel like you're a part of something? And God really did something with my extended family that I kind of alluded to earlier, where it started with my dad and me getting a lot of healing through forgiveness and repentance that kind of broke, honestly, a couple decades it broke the brokenness, right? It kind of healed a lot of stuff that where I was pushing him away because I saw him as a threat through my teen years and early 20s. And unplanned and unprovoked by me, it kind of just in a certain way unfolded that there was healing. And so for the first time, it was like, now I have this great community and I've got a father. And you know, I spent years complaining that I didn't have a dad to hold on to, or I didn't have a family that I could depend on. And then all of a sudden there's this clash happening where I did. I didn't quite know what to do with it. And so we were experimenting with things over the 2 years that we still lived in Fort Thomas, but ultimately it was like we kind of looked at it. When we moved to Florence, when we bought this house, I can remember we went to my parents right after we looked at this house, and I said to them, like, I think we're going to put an offer in on this house, and I want you guys to know. I looked at my mom and dad both and said, I want you guys to know, like, we're putting all of our chips in to Florence. And I think it really was special for them because they knew that we had left. You know? And
that was a significant moment, I'm sure. It was like a burn the ships. We're coming in and give them confidence to kind of rally even more so around here.
Particularly knowing how cynical I had been even just toward this city in and of itself, you know, and just...
And what was that? What was it like? Because you grew up here.
I did.
Right. I grew up here.
Yeah. Well, I think Rhett and I are both really high idealists, and Fort Thomas is like the idyllic community. and Florence is not. And so like we like character a lot, for instance, character in homes, character in neighborhoods, character in just like community. And most everything that we grew up around, you know, one neighborhood might be different from the other, but this neighborhood has its set houses,
right,
and the set people that live in those houses and things like that. And in some ways you could say that Fort Thomas is, you know, very much the same across the board, the same people and things, but there's a little more character to it. And so that was one thing that turned us away when we were looking around pretty much any community that we drove into, whether it was Florence or elsewhere, where all the houses look the same. We're cookie cutter, like, no, this isn't us.
Well,
Can't do it.
and with the realtor that we were working with, which wasn't you because you weren't a realtor, you know, we were really trying to stay away from subdivisions.
Yeah.
And that's that feel, right? We really, where are we right now?
In the middle of a cul-de-sac in a subdivision where every house is exactly the same.
Exactly.
Ours is a little different.
Yeah.
That makes you feel better. Just walking that way.
Yes.
The same house.
But I will say though, like, you know, so family brought us here, but there was a big fight in our hearts even towards that, because most of the houses we actually looked at were in Anderson.
Oh,
and there were only like 2 down here. We're like, okay, if we have to go down there, fine. But we were just thinking maybe if we move out of Fort Thomas, that'll do something with our family. And then when we came to this house specifically, it was the last house of many that day. And we're like, crap. Like, we're definitely moving to Florence.
Wow.
You know, like this is we just knew this is the house we're
Well,
supposed to have.
this was the 9th of 9 houses.
On one day?
In one day.
Oh, your realtor loved you that day. Yeah.
That was probably the 3rd time we did that.
Hey, I
too.
bought her Wendy's lunch.
So double stack, took care of it. Yeah, okay.
But yeah, we saw it. We walked in, and we had seen nicer houses.
Yeah.
We had seen quote unquote better houses.
Yeah.
But the second
What was it about this one?
So to walk in and see this house, and we actually asked our realtor, like, this is in the same price range as everything else we've looked at. Some things half the size, some things about the same size, but way worse condition.
What was crazier, when you walk downstairs in the finished basement, it's the way we walked it down. The left side is what you're drawn to. You walk down the stairs and you just kind of like go left, and you see it. There's a full bedroom, a big basement, and like a storage area. And we're like, wow, this house is. We were thinking about. We still had the same feeling about this place based off of that. I did not realize there were 2 more bedrooms and a bathroom in the basement still, and that was just like icing on the cake to the house that we were already gonna buy.
Wow.
So it was
So
pretty obvious.
So it came with some unexpected surprises that were on the positive side.
Yes.
But so let's walk back from the story. What happened next as you left? There was a lot of other unexpected parts.
Right.
Life happened, right?
Yeah.
And so walk us through when you guys left Fort Thomas and moved out here. What happened with your family?
So when we started looking at houses, I was pregnant with her 5th, and seemingly everything was okay, normal. And then at some point through, found out that I had some complications and issues with that pregnancy that put me on bedrest. And if the complications increased, then I was going to be hospitalized.
This was before you moved.
This was before we moved. So we had decided on the house, had put in our offer and stuff. Everything was kind of going through, but had not signed yet.
Which was literally, I think we signed our offer on the 20th or something.
Yeah.
That's the 18th. So
Yeah.
3 years ago.
So I ended up being hospitalized the day that we signed. So Rhett signed, I don't even know where.
Well, that's the closing.
Yeah.
October 20th. We closed very quickly.
Where?
At Good Sam Hospital.
Well, he did. You didn't. I did. They came to me and got my signature at the hospital.
Got the signatures while she's like laying on bed. I can't move.
Yeah.
But we laugh. We're able to laugh now.
Yeah.
Our daughter is
Fine,
100% healthy, but she was born 29 weeks through that process. So what was really crazy is October 20th, we move in.
I'm still hospitalized.
Still
I'm not
hospitalized.
even
She
here.
couldn't pack her house. I was working full time. I had 5 kids. She was in the hospital.
5 kids and one is a premature.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
4 kids.
Four
Yeah,
kids.
yeah. I forgot. So still didn't have that one yet. So 4 kids plus a wife in the hospital. And so we had community in Fort Thomas and I had all of my new Florence friends, like we've had friends in Florence, and all my Fort Thomas friends who just did everything. I mean, you were one of them, who just did everything for us. Came and painted, moved everything, brought, trailers,
food for the people to eat.
Took my kid. But I mean, legitimately, I moved into a 5-bedroom house by myself, like without my wife. She hadn't even seen it. Like,
we had friends that, since I was in the hospital for, I don't know, off and on 4 or 5 weeks, that came and stayed to help Rhett with the kids during the day. And one day he came to the hospital and was like, so Dave built all the bunk beds, and I just started weeping because it was just like...
I mean, because IKEA bunk beds.
Right.
Like,
they had previously been put together, pulled back apart, and then put back together, so it wasn't...
Yeah. So it was, one of the things I like to, the story I tell about when we moved in. So it was this time of year. You can see outside right now.
Yeah.
It's beautiful trees.
Yep.
That was the other
You really can't see it. It is the most wooded lot in this entire area. In this subdivision. And by the time, so we signed the offer, we didn't come back to the house until it closed. Closed, got here, it was still October 20th. And then within 1 week, and it's happened every year since, on the date, within 1 week, every leaf fell off the tree, and you could see like 15 houses.
So it's like, there was no way you were coming to Florence.
Yeah, so that was, I always say, God must really wanted us here to put it on that time.
Yes, because that was one of the things, we had looked at a lot of places with an acre, well, we have an acre now, but 2 or 3 acres where you couldn't see any houses. And from the front side, like you said, it looks like any other subdivision. But from the back, we can't see any houses, and it's like we have our own little haven.
Right. Yeah. So, super challenging move. I mean, incredibly difficult. You're worried for I remember that you're like, my wife's gonna die. Like, the baby's, super fragile, really difficult, stressful time. You got work, you got all the kids, you're moving. I can't imagine hardly anything more stressful. So now we're 3 years later. So you talked about some of the house, but tell me, how has the house, what do you feel like it's done for your family since you guys have been here 3 years now? You're past that really crazy, hectic period, and now you're living in it, and it's shaping your kids, and it's shaping you. How would you say it's impacted you?
Yeah, I think, we could probably list many things. I think living on a street with 54 kids under the age of 12, which we were before this, was incredible for obvious reasons. But as we came here, there's one kid under the age of 12 other than ours on the street. And so we were concerned about that. Yeah. That was like, but we felt like we needed to do it. It was the right choice. But one of the things we've been excited about and has been cool is the fact that, I really want our 5 children to be their own best friends, right? I want the camaraderie within our family to be really strong. And so over the last 3 years, they've really not had many playmates.
So you just had to move to the suburbs to not have playmates.
We do things very differently.
That's right.
I would say too,
that's really interesting.
We won't go into the full story either, but Thorin, our 4th child, also had a big hospital stay a year before I was hospitalized with our 5th. And all of that is very traumatic for a family, and especially our kids. And so we didn't know this coming here, it's just more in hindsight, but this was a really great healing place for them. Because on the street with all those kids, their natural is to go run and play, and that's an awesome thing, but we really need to pull kids in and love on them and just care for them and build into them, and that was able to happen here.
So you would probably say that moving here and the time during the move and after wasn't what you fully expected to happen, but would you say it was a net win for your family, or different? Like, you had to overcome all these different challenges with your wife in the hospital and a premature baby, and even just moving to the suburbs and that kind of obstacle in itself. Like, how would you feel? What would you say has changed about you guys personally in overcoming those challenges and being here for 3 years now?
Yeah, I think I absolutely would say it's been a net. We were talking before, and I think if this house would have been present on that street that we had lived on before, then I think we would have moved into that house.
Yeah.
I think that this is what we should have done, and so I think we made the right decision by coming here. There's a lot of things that make living here hard. I work much closer to where we used to live. A lot of our friends are still much closer to where we used to live.
You like the city?
We like being closer to downtown Cincinnati. So there are a lot of things that would say, go back. We might one day. We don't know. We're not in the business of calling any place our forever home. But for this season, for where we've been and where we are currently, this has been a really good decision. And for the reasons we kind of already stated, but our family is here all the time. Just the fact my dad stopped by the other day just to fly a drone with my son.
Yeah.
And when we lived in Fort Thomas, that would have had to have been an event, right? But he was on his way home, and he just stopped by and hung out with his grandkid for a while. And that kind of stuff is more regular. My mom gets to hang out with our kids. So the integration of the multi-generations in our family, even to my grandparents, honestly, because they live closer to here, and they're able to come here. They never would have come to Fort Thomas. So then my 90-year-old grandfather is even being able to integrate it into our family more. It's all one floor up on top.
Yeah.
So the ranch, they can walk in, whereas our other house, the other houses we've lived in or owned previously, that wasn't necessarily the case. So it's been great. But for us, we really keep the home as it's a tool that we're using for whatever our family's needs are at that time, right? So when we think about why would we ever move, or why would if whatever's going on, we just need, it's a part of the analysis for us of just what work should we be doing, what are our finances, what activities should we be engaging in outside the home, all of those things, and where should we be living, both geography and actual space. To us is a conversation we just reevaluate pretty regularly. And every time for the last 3 years we've reevaluated it, it's stay here. And we, to the point that we even put a good chunk of change into a rehab of the bathroom to create kind of a master bath space for her that was having for us that had wallpaper that was coming off the wall. Yeah. So
That's just my 2-year-old banging on the thing. Okay, so we have 9 kids in this house that haven't had dinner. Maybe we should stop filming and go eat.
But hey, we've got 9 kids in the house and we barely know they're here right now.
That's true.
That's a good
So
house.
I'm gonna go make my wife not hate me, and we'll eat.
All right.
Barbers, thanks for sharing your story with us.
You bet.
Absolutely.
All right.
Glad to have you.
Right here.
All right. Wanna pray?